In the dark of night we pray, kneeling low, hear what we say. Freedom calls in every tone. Faith is built on hearts of stone. Vibes so raw can't hide the truth. Words so sharp they cut right through. Real talk for the soul's appeal. Prayers rise up the wounds they heal. Lift our voices to the sky, a righteous perspective high. On this path we won't back down, for the Father wears the crown. Each step brings another fight. Breaking chains, we're seeking light. Voice of power won't be tamed. With His love, we're never shamed. Lift our voices to the sky, a righteous perspective high. On this path we won't back down, for the Father wears the crown. From the ashes we shall rise. Hope is found deep in our eyes. Every word a battle cry. With the Father none deny.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ARP in the morning. I am your host, Wise Man, and I appreciate you all pulling up this morning. I really appreciate you guys. Happy Tuesday to you all. Hope you all had a great Monday, first day of the week to kick things off. We are day 2 in the week as the weeks continue to progress. I believe we are in, what is this, week 3 of May. As the months continue to progress at a rapid rate. Goodness gracious, I can't believe this month is almost over with. You know, my nephew, I think his last day of school is today. He's going to the 6th grade starting next year. So shout out to him. I know he's at school right now, so he's not going to watch this. And he doesn't watch his uncle's channel either. It doesn't have anything to do with, Fortnite or Madden, or anything along those lines. So I know he ain't checking me out. But I do appreciate each and every one of you all pulling up this morning. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you hit that like button for me. I thought yesterday's show was pretty good. Could have been better in my opinion, but it is what it is. They all can't be great. But definitely appreciate you guys, pulling up and rocking with me yesterday as well. Shout out to Lori Addison. I appreciate you pulling up this morning early, 8:19 a.m. in the morning. She says, happy Tuesday, Wise and ARP family from California. Pray everyone is doing well this morning. God bless you, Lori, and thank you very much. What's up, Little Rock 2517? Appreciate you pulling up. What up, Redefined Queen? Kevin Caldwell, Hobo Rob Prospecting. What's going on, D Shids? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that properly. Thank you very much. What up, Scott Young, PK Krillin, two of my Tennessee brethren up in here. What up, Larry Montgomery, JJ O'Hara? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Big job, Ford. What's going on with you? Wisconsin in the house. Appreciate you pulling up this morning. What up, Marla? What up, Grandma Mello? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Hope all is well. What up, Coaster? Shout out to the Blues. I think I saw Coaster. I saw Regina up in here. What's going on, Regina? How you doing this morning, sister? It's been a little minute since we seen you up in here, sleeping in, I'm guessing. What up, RJ Hudson? How's it going this morning? South Cac in the building. What up, Mark Galvin? How's it going this morning? Cashville in the building. What's going on with you? Regina, how's it going this morning? Long Island, New York in the house. What up, Maverick One? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. He says he's very disappointed in Cash, and I believe is it Dan or Dine? I can't really read that well. But thank you very much. What up, Shelby Dodd? How's it going this morning? Francis Finnerty, appreciate you pulling up this morning. Billy W, appreciate you pulling up this morning. AK Bauer, appreciate you pulling up this morning. Brian Gable, appreciate you pulling up this morning. Hope all is well with you guys. Shout out to the Blues in the building. Who we got up in here? West Virginia Wire. What's going on, Regina and Coaster? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Hope all is well. Steve Edminster, appreciate you pulling up this morning, brother. Hope all is well. What up, Eric? How's it going this morning? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Hope all is well. Is it Cash and Dan? Is it Dan or Don? I could be wrong. Playing us for fools. There's some issues for sure. What up, Elijah Burnett? How's it going this morning? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. We're going to get the show started pretty quickly today and going forward. I think I'm going to try my best to try to get things kicked off. Well, I know we spend, 15 minutes or so saying what's up to everybody, but we'll cut that time down, a little bit to maybe 4 or 5 minutes of people that I can catch up with real quickly. What's up, American Girl? Riza Mahmood, appreciate you pulling up this morning. Peace and blessings to you, brother. Hope all is well, up there in Milwaukee. Hope all is well with you guys. What up, Seabergy? How's it going in Hobo Ride Prospecting? Thank you very much. Oh, he's talking about Dan Bongino. Got you. Man, way over my head. Sorry, it's still early. And, I'm still getting the day going. What up, Rachel Dawn? How's it going this morning? Good morning to you as well. Thank you very much for pulling up this morning. Let's get the show started. If you haven't done so already, man, please make sure you hit that like button for me if you have not done already. Comments are great. So even on the replay, if you're watching this, man, leave me a comment. I want to hear from you guys and what you guys, have to say or what you guys think about the show. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let's keep the chat going. Let's keep it peaceful. But hey, this is not an echo chamber. Say what you feel. Just be respectful. That's all I ask. Super chats will stop the show. Super thanks will stop the show. Anybody that joins the ARP family or gift the ARP family membership, anybody that buys your brother a coffee, when I get that, it will be acknowledged probably the next day because I don't see those, when they come while I'm live anyway. And I do appreciate everybody that has supported the show and does support the show, financially. I definitely appreciate that. And shout out to Ed Marr, Mississippi in the building. Shout out to him. And 10 Mania, he actually has a name. How do you fix corruption in DC when pretty much all of them are dirty on both sides, right and left? You're absolutely right. That is a difficult task. There's a lot of people that get into office and they have their intentions are good until they get in there and realize like, hey, it's just me and my good intentions. They're not going to move the needle at all. Let me go on and get what I can get while I can. That's what it seems like. That's what seems like what seems to happen, when people get into these offices, especially on the federal side of things, if you can get in there. But I can't remember who it was that mentioned it. Maybe it was Scott Jennings when he was on Bill Maher. I believe that was the case. Moving a lot of these, federal agencies, moving them outside of DC, moving them to the Midwest and other places. I would love that. I definitely would love that. And I do agree with Brett Montgomery, and shout out to him. I think we need term limits as well. I think that is important, as well. Although these folks are not going to vote again. They're not going to vote themselves out of office. That we do know. They're not going to vote themselves out of office. But I would not mind seeing a lot of these agencies moved outside of the DC market. I wouldn't mind that at all. But let's get the show started.
Under the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents.
Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest. He is forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thanks. Onto the same question.
All righty, here we go. So we got to talk about it a little bit more. We got to talk a bit more about the news that broke over the weekend. We got to talk about the years-long cover-up of the Democrat and a complicit mainstream media and what it means for every single decision issued from the Oval Office over the past 4 years. Because wow, this could be one of the biggest scandals, one of the biggest cover-ups in presidential history. It just could be. Excuse me. So this past weekend, the White House quietly announced that Joe Biden has been diagnosed with advanced stage 4 prostate cancer that has already spread to his bones. A Gleason score of 9, medically speaking, it's catastrophic. Medically speaking, it's catastrophic. It's a catastrophic diagnosis. We're talking about a diagnosis so serious that most men develop it over a decade or more. And even the fastest growing forms usually take 2 to 3 years to metastasize. Yet here we are being told that this was just discovered, in a routine exam that should have caught this a while back. Now, we're also talking about a sitting president here. We're not just talking about some Joe Blow. We're not just talking about somebody that doesn't, go see doctors. We're talking about a sitting president who, at minimum, has to get a physical annually. And I'm assuming that they knew this. They've been on top of this for quite some time. I mean, a doctor just went on MSDNC. He went on the Morning Joe. And of course, we know MSDNC and we know what time it is with him. But he's essentially said that Trump's, Obama's, and Bush's medical exams are all easily accessible, but Biden's are not. That's what he said. He said that the previous presidents, all of their medical information is easily accessible if you want it. But for whatever reason, Biden's medical records are not easily accessible. Let's take a look.
Run for president for another 4 years. Obviously, the PSA exam is not 100% accurate, and I've never met a doctor that doesn't say you needed to do the PSA exam and also have the physical exam as well. I just find it hard to believe that any White House physician wouldn't say, okay, well, what my doctor and what every other doctor says, which is, okay, we've done the PSA test and that's fine, but at least once a year, we need to do a physical exam. Again, if you're just talking about a 78-year-old guy that is not running the free world, that's one thing. But if you're a White House physician and you have any man over 40 years old, are you not going to at least say, hey, once a year, like every other physician says, once a year, we need to do a physical exam and check? Because this is like one of the leading causes, one of the leading sicknesses for men over 40.
Yeah, Joe, I think 100%. And, did they do a digital rectal exam to assess his prostate? Again, typically that's done in the presence of symptoms. To your point, he's the leader of the free world. Did they do it and not characterize it? It's hard to know. We're speculating here. I would say in an abundance of caution, probably be holistic and comprehensive. That would make sense. It is interesting to note that President Trump's, President Obama's, and President Bush II, in their most recent physicals, in their terms of office, obviously 2025 for President Trump, did comment on their PSA levels. And so they got screened while in office and they commented on it. It's not easy to access the most recent ones from President Biden. You can read the summary articles. I couldn't access it on the archive site on the White House just before I came on. But according to those that were able to, there is not a report of a PSA test on the most recent physical that was read out for President Biden's last year in office. And so it's to say what was done, what was not done. You and I would be speculating, but the other three most recent occupants of the White House had it drawn, and it was reported out. In the case of President.
All right. So look, even Democrats are now in an impossible position right now. They're in an impossible position. Many of them, they may not have known about the specific cancer diagnosis, but they were definitely complicit in the cover-up of his obvious decline. It's been obvious for a long time. It's been obvious for a long time. Anybody that's been paying attention to what's going on, it's been pretty obviously. Mentally, physically, we all got a chance to see it. We talked about it all last year for the most part, at least the first half of the year anyway. We talked about it. And honestly, there were questions about after he stepped down, where is this guy? He stepped down from running, but he didn't step down as president. And he was basically, out of the public eye for the better part of 4 or 5 months. You know what I'm saying? Last year, towards the end of the end of his administration. He was like on a milk carton, right? Everybody was asking, like, where is this guy? Okay, we understand that he stepped down from running for president for a second term, but last I checked, he is still the president. Where is this guy? Seriously. So we all got a chance to see, and we all knew that there was a decline, both mentally and physically. And Joe Biden, he's been deteriorating right in front of our eyes for quite some time, even though the liberal media, they ran interference every step of the way. And anybody that questioned, they called you crazy. They said it was a cheap fake. They said you were lying flat out. Remember when Joe Scarborough got on national TV and said that this was the best version of Joe Biden that he's ever seen? Y'all remember that? That he's better than, he's better than ever intellectually, analytically. He is sharp as a tack. This guy's got it all, man. But now, even MSNBC, which usually acts like the DNC's PR department, they aired a segment with this doctor who admitted something that should terrify everyone. A cancer like this doesn't show up overnight. It just doesn't. It does not show up overnight. And you don't get to, stage 4, stage 5. I mean, this is a former vice president and at the time, I guess he was a sitting president. You're not going to tell me that y'all didn't know this. You're just not. I'm just not going to believe it. Why are they making his medical records impossible to access? I mean, it is hard to believe that the president of the most powerful country in the world wouldn't have gotten the detailed medical exams. So the question becomes this: did his doctors skip the test? I highly doubt that. But answer me in the chat, or answer this question for me in the comment section for those that are watching the replay. Did his doctors on purpose skip the test? Or did Biden refuse the test? Or worse, did they know and keep it quiet? Which one? Answer that question for me in the chat. Answer that question for me in the comment section. Because that's what the timeline is starting to suggest. Multiple doctors have now gone on TV saying it's almost impossible to miss this type of cancer if a patient has been receiving regular screenings, which Biden supposedly did. And if that were true, we're either looking at the most medically incompetent, presidency in the U.S. history, or the most intentional political cover-up ever pulled off on the American people. That's another question right there. Which one is it? Answer that question for me in the chat. Answer that question for me in the comment section. Which one is it? Are the doctors super incompetent? Or, is this hands down one of the most intentional political cover-ups ever pulled off on the American people? Which one is it? I mean, can we know for sure? We probably won't. I don't know. We probably will never get a real answer. However, there was another doctor, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, who is a former member of Biden's transition team who helped craft the Obama-era Affordable Care Act. He too went on MSDNC the other day and essentially said the same thing everyone's been saying. Every doctor, at least from what I've seen, has been saying the same thing, and that is there is no way they just found this information out. There is absolutely no way they found this information out just all of a sudden. There's no way.
It is likely, if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone, that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So again, I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
And I'm just curious again, if your doctor to a president of the United States that is a male, that is an older man, would a prostate test, and again, we're just talking about a PSA screening, a blood test that you could do along with all the other blood tests. It's not even that it would be intrusive. Would this not be one of the first tests that you would conduct as a White House doctor?
If you're a White House doctor in this situation, I think you would certainly discuss it with the president and talk about the pros and cons. I think if you then ask, well, if President Biden says, well, if I'm your father, which patients often do, you know, what would you recommend? I think the fact is that most White House doctors would recommend getting the test. And again, the evidence is, look at President Obama, President Bush, younger than President Biden, and they both got the test.
Sorry about that. Muted. But this isn't something that happens overnight. You know, stage 4 with it spreading to the bone. This isn't something that just sneaks up on you, man. This it just doesn't. This isn't something that sneaks up on you overnight. Not with the type of, you know, regular exams that presidents go through. I mean, we're talking years, 5, maybe even 10, you know, for it to get to this point. Unless it's just extremely aggressive. I mean, this kind of cancer takes time to spread. So if Biden, you know, is at this stage now, that means there's a very real possibility that they knew long ago and they ran him anyway. And the clues were everywhere. Remember when Biden blurted out in 2022, you know, that's why I and so many others I grew up with have cancer. He did say that. The media rushed to cover it up. Oh, no, he meant past skin cancer lesions. They said, oh, no, that's not what he meant. It's nothing to see here. This is a nothing burger. That's what, you know, that's what we were told. But, you know, what do I know?
Going and looking at who is controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why can't for the longest time Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation. The window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why can't for the longest time. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why can't for the longest time Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Yeah. Yeah. He said it. So if the President Biden was dealing with aggressive cancer for years, who was running the nation? That's the question right there. That's the the trillion-dollar question. If he was dealing with this, then they also told us that he was on vacation 40% of the time. And if he has been, dealing with a severe, amount of severe, cancer diagnosis, it makes complete sense that he's out of it, for half of his administration. It makes complete sense. Meanwhile, the White House, their doctors, they released reports that didn't even include PSA results. Big questions. Were those reports? Were other test results? We have a right to see them. In Congress, they should get involved in this as well. There needs to be some hearings about this. We need to hear directly from the physicians. We need to hear from everyone that was involved, everybody that was closely, situated to the president. We need to hear. We need to hear everybody that was involved in the care, everybody that played a role into this. We need to hear from them. Was Biden cognizant enough to sign those pardons? What does that say about every executive action over the previous 4 years? Every bill signing, every presidential pardon that supposedly came directly from him. We need to hear about it. Seriously. We need to hear about it.
Going and looking at who is controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient. Many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the auto pen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the auto pen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the auto pen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline.
That's great news right there. But let's see if the GOP actually follows through, if it actually holds its promise and conducts an investigation into one of the biggest scandals in decades. This is one of the biggest scandals in decades. This is one of those things that are going to go in your children's or your grandchildren's history books to be discussed. Maybe. We know who runs the school systems, and we also know who runs. This may or may not. We don't know yet. Never mind. Scratch that. We don't know if this will be discussed in your children's history books. We don't know. But I would say, Dr. Soleil, and I do agree with you, this is definitely bigger than Watergate. It's definitely bigger than that. if Biden was incapable of performing his duties, then we have to question the legitimacy of everything that was done under his name during his tenure, during his administration. You got to question everything, every executive order, every policy decision, every pardon. It's got to be questioned. It doesn't just look bad. It could be unconstitutional. Because let's keep it real. If the president wasn't of sound mind or body and others were effectively acting as him, we're not just dealing with the fraud, we're dealing with a potential usurp, good Lord, I can't talk today. Usurpation of power. You had people that were not elected running this show. And nobody voted for it. Nobody voted for this. And you know, the Democrats, I mean, they're stuck and they're starting to jump ship now. You got Van Jones, who's one of the only Democrats in the mainstream who still has the ability to speak the truth. Sometimes he has the ability to speak the truth. He called this cover up a crime against the Republic. And when you have Van Jones calling it out, when you have Van Jones calling out the Biden administration and the Democrat Party for orchestrating a cover up of this magnitude, you know it's bad. You know it's bad when you got Van Jones, because he is a company guy or a party guy, however you want to look at it, through and through.
The record in 2022, voicing concerns about Biden's age and ability. Whom do you blame for the decision of him to run for re-election and the decision to hide his declining abilities as much as they were able to?
Well, look, at the top end, you have to blame him because he made the decision. But he was, and your book reflects this in many different ways, he was shielded by a coterie of advisors and his family. They were in this confirmation bubble, and they tried to shield the world from his decline, and they tried to shield him from his own standing and his polling numbers and so on. And so at the end of the day, I have to point the finger at the people around him who didn't do him a service by encouraging him to continue. I think it was obvious to the public. It may not have been obvious to a lot of politicians. I actually think it was, but it wasn't politically wise in their judgment to speak out. But it was obvious to the American people, even before that debate, that the president was just too old. He would have been closer to 90 than 80 if he had won re-election, and he already was showing decline. So I blame the people around him, because real loyalty, and it's hard when you work for President Jake to tell them hard truths, but real loyalty demanded that they say, Mr. President, it's just not there, and it's not in your interest, and it's better for you, the country, and the Democratic Party if you leave now.
Van, I remember how emotional you were in the immediate moments after the June 27th, 2024 debate because of what you saw on the stage. And with all this new reporting coming out, and I should disclose that I gave both of you copies of the book so you would have a little bit more information. Do you feel like you were duped, Van? Like, how do you feel?
First, this book is extraordinary. I don't care who you are, left, right, or otherwise. Anybody who cares about this country and about just the dynamics of power, this is the emperor's new clothes playing itself out in real time. Everybody knew, but everyone was afraid to say, except for David Axelrod for 2 years, that something was wrong here. And so, I was shocked. I love Joe Biden. I don't like him. I love him. I got a chance to work with him when I was a part of the Obama administration and loved him more every day. I was shocked to see his condition when he came out, and so was the world. And that wasn't the first time he was in that condition. The book makes it very, very clear. There are people who knew and said nothing. And that is a crime against this republic. And I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive cover-up.
Notice how they're blaming the people around him. You notice that? Y'all notice how he's blaming, these folks out here, they're blaming the people around him as if the media couldn't also see what we all saw over the past couple of years. The media lied. They helped the administration cover it up as well. They did. And anyway, Van Jones, he doesn't mince words. He said this was a crime against the Republic. Think about that for a second, man. A crime against the Republic. Van Jones, who has defended Democrats through thick and thin, came out and admitted what the rest of the left still refuses to say. There was a cover-up. People knew, and they said nothing. They chose to say nothing. He said flat out, this was immoral. It's deceitful. And something the Democrat Party will pay for a very, very long time. And they should. And they need to be called out. And I'm looking forward to the hearings. I'm looking forward to it. It needs to be out there. The American people need to hear this. They need to see it. Now, how many of you guys think that with this information coming out, I know Kamala Harris was thinking about running for office again in 2028. Maybe, I think they also said that she may run for governor, out there in California here in the very near future. Do you think this tanks Kamala Harris's political career moving forward? Answer that question for me in the chat. Answer that question for me in the comment section. Do you think this tanks her bid for office? Whether it's, another run for president or, running for the governor seat out there in Cali. Because you're not going to tell me that the vice president didn't know what was going on. You're just not going to tell me that. And the fact that this cover-up is happening, this should shake people, man. It should upset people. People should be livid right now. Because this wasn't just political malpractice. This was a moral betrayal. They paraded around a man clearly in mental and physical decline, and they did it for political power. Now, I've been saying this for quite some time, just based off of his mental acuity and the way he moved around. I was saying this is elder abuse. Now that we find out that this man has stage 4 cancer, and this is a cancer that they had to know about at least for 2 to 3 years. And in some cases, people think that this is something that he's been dealing with and been living with for the better part of almost a decade. And his wife allowed this to go. This is elder abuse. His wife, his children, they allowed him to be paraded out there like that. This is elder abuse. These people, they would do anything for power, man. They didn't care what it cost. They don't care the cost. They'll do anything for power. They did not care what it would cost the country either. And they certainly do not care about the daggone voters. They needed a puppet to keep the machine running. And Biden was the willing puppet. And Van Jones knew it. And according to the commentary, he was even saying quietly during the campaign, which means he wasn't the only one. He had been talking like this for a minute. He wasn't the only one. So my question now is, why didn't he choose to speak up? If he chose to speak up, would it have been career malpractice for him to do so? Would that have been all that it took for him to, basically destroy his career? Maybe. People will do a whole heck of a lot to make money and a whole heck of a lot to make sure that they continue to make money. I mean, we're talking Van Jones here. He's a multimillionaire. But these people who knew about this, why didn't they stop it? Why? And in my opinion, the reason why is because power comes before the country. And now the cover-up is unraveling, and the American people are seeing just how deep the rot goes. This was not business as usual. This was not just a health issue. This was a national security crisis, and one that proves yet again that our ruling class thinks that the American people are too stupid or too passive to notice. Well, they're wrong. We notice. Now let's make sure that they answer for it. Now, how many of you guys, in the chat think that anyone will be prosecuted for this cover up? How many of you guys think that they will even get to the bottom of this, or will they do everything that they can to sweep it up under the rug, say nothing to see here, and try to keep it moving? Now, what we do know is you had the Chuck Schumers and some of these others in the world tell you that, hey, we're not even talking about that. We're moving forward. And I would assume that that's what we're going to see from other people in the daggone Democrat Party. They're not going to want to talk about this. All they're going to say is, we're not talking about it. We're moving forward. We're not talking about it. We're moving forward. I think that's what we'll get. Will anybody be held accountable for this, though? In the chat, in the comment section, do you think anybody will be held accountable for this? I don't think so. I don't think so. And what we do know about mainstream media, because they are such an arm, a propaganda arm, or protectionist arm for the DNC, they're not going to push for it either. Now, if this was the other side, this was on the other side of things, regardless of who it is, whether it was Trump or any other, Republican president, if this was the case, they would be doing everything that they can to make sure that somebody is held accountable. They'll be knocking on doors, beating down doors, for answers to the questions that they had. But because it's Biden, the Biden-Harris administration, and it's the Democrats, I just don't believe that the mainstream media will do their jobs. I just don't. Shout out to Jeffrey Wisnett with the $5 super chat. He says, if he was doing chemo, that explains why he looked and acted run down all the time. Absolutely. And thank you for the $5 super chat. You're absolutely right there. You're right. If he was actually going through chemo, you're right. It would explain a lot. It would also explain the reason why he didn't work 50% of the time. They said he was on quote unquote vacation 40% of the time, of his administration. It would explain a lot to a lot of us. But my question to you guys is, will anyone be held accountable for this cover up? Let's keep it moving, though. I want to shift gears just a bit. There's breaking news that came out of the Supreme Court, and it is a huge win for President Trump. We're going to get into that right now. Let's keep it going. Appreciate you guys. If you hadn't hit that like button for me already, please make sure you do so. Hit that like button for me if you haven't done so already.
A win for President Trump at the Supreme Court. For now, the feds can end so-called temporary protected status for hundreds of Venezuelans. While the legal battle goes back to a lower court, this is separate from the fight over deporting accused gang members under the Alien Enemies Act, which is on a different track. It is about a program that prevents deportations to countries dealing with natural disasters or civil unrest. With that, we bring in Jonathan Turley, constitutional attorney and Fox News contributor. Jonathan, great to have you with us to sort this out. Give us a sense of what happened at the court today and what it means.
Well, this is a considerable win for the Trump administration. We're talking about not a small number of people, talking about over 500,000 people. And what was curious is that the federal law itself says that you can use this special parole provision on a case-by-case basis. That is not what the Biden administration did. But once these people were in the country, the Trump administration sought to end that status. After all, it's called temporary. And the court said, no, now you've got to do case-by-case determinations, which, of course, would take a very long time. For the administration, this is a huge issue, because if these individuals stay past 2 years, other protections kick in. They become as difficult to deport as all the other millions that were allowed into the country that are going through the slow immigration process. So it's a considerable win.
Jonathan, thank you very much for the update. We'll be watching. We know that Justice Jackson was the one dissenting voice in this, so lots coming through the court in the coming weeks for sure as they get ready to wrap up. Jonathan, thanks. Good.
All righty. Shout out to Buddha with the $5 super chat. He says, do you think the cover-up was to not let the 25th Amendment be invoked? They knew Kamala would have been a disaster. You know what? I don't think that is the case. And now that you posed the question, it makes me think, it makes me wonder, how many people were in on this and actually knew? Because I think the Democrats, they were willing to do whatever it took to make sure that they get, a woman president and a black woman president, and they wanted it to be the Democrat Party. So it just makes me wonder how many people were involved in this cover up. Maybe Kamala didn't have much to do with it. Maybe she didn't know. Because it seems to me that the powers that be would have been okay with, Kamala becoming the, I guess she would have been the 47th president. They would have been okay with it just for the optics aspect of things. That's just my opinion. But, in reference to this Supreme Court, this win for President Trump, an 8-1 ruling. 8-1 ruling. That's not a partisan ruling. It's 8-1. That right there is what we would call a SCOTUS slam dunk. Even liberal justices like Kagan and Sotomayor sided with Trump on this one. Shout out to True Texan with the $2 super chat. He says, get the military and get them out of here now. Well, when you think about a lot of the things that are going on, a lot of these people that come over here, illegally, or they're, TPS, they have work visas, they're able to work, so forth and so on. And they've taken a lot of the lower level positions, right? Some of your general labor type roles and things of that nature. Getting these people out. And then you got the rollback on Section 8. And you got a lot of people, that are on Section 8 that hadn't been working for quite some time. And people will say, well, who's going to take these jobs? Well, those people, they need to take those jobs. So as we get the illegal immigrants out, or the people that are here, on, Biden's quote unquote TPS, those people need to go. And we need to get these people that are able-bodied U.S. citizens that are on Section 8, things of that nature, get them in to take some of these roles. Makes complete sense to me. But I was glad to see that even, a few of the liberal justices outside of Ketanji Brown Jackson, that's another story right there. We may get into that here in a little bit. Outside of her, they were all on board, with Trump on this one. And like I said, the only dissent came from Ketanji Brown Jackson, which honestly should be no surprise to any of you guys. So what's this all about? Trump wanted to end TPS for hundreds of thousands of migrants from countries like Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba. These are people who were allowed to stay in the United States under TPS, or temporary protection order, because of bad conditions in their home countries. Wars, natural disasters, political unrest, so forth and so on. But let's be honest. Temporary was never meant to be forever. Now, the last time I checked, the dictionary states that temporary is, not meant to be. There's an end in sight when you think of something that's temporary. It wasn't meant for these people to come over here. It wasn't meant for these people to come over here and stay permanently. And Trump's argument, which the Supreme Court just agreed with, is that the executive branch gets to decide when it's time to end TPS, not some elected federal judge with a political agenda. This is about restoring basic separations of powers. The president sets immigration policy, not activist courts, not activist judges. The president sets immigration policy, not judges in lower level courts. TPS was never meant to be a permanent backdoor to residency or citizenship. It was designed as a temporary pause button, not a blank check. But under Biden, it became a loophole factory. Dangerous criminals, gang members, even terrorists exploited this TPS, this temporary protective status. And DHS whistleblowers, they've been sounding the alarm about this, and about how this program was being abused for a minute. No one wanted to listen. No one wanted to listen to these folks. And now thanks to this ruling, Trump can go ahead and continue to clean up the mess. Now, of course, you got the left. They're having full-blown meltdowns right now over this. They're calling it racist and xenophobic and all the usual nonsense. You're going to get that from them. That's just what it is, to be expected. They're trotting out sob stories and trying to paint Trump as a monster. But let me ask you a question. When did enforcing our immigration laws become controversial? Seriously. Do I need to ask it again? When did enforcing our immigration laws become such this controversial topic? We have laws. Those laws are on the books for a reason. TPS is not a permanent guarantee. It's not. You're not entitled to live and work here forever because of something that happened a decade ago in your home country. Go back home. Go be the change that you want to see right over there. This is about protecting our legal system. It's about protecting, our country. It's about restoring order. It's about ensuring that the people who come to this country do so through legal vetted channels, not through exploited loopholes and not through, some mobile app that they created that allows anybody that comes over here get a hold of the application and you just sign up for TPS regardless of what's going on in your nation. This is a massive, massive legal win for Trump and the administration. And more importantly, it's a win for the Constitution. And even more importantly than that, it's a win for the United States citizens. The president should have the power to enforce immigration law, period. And now, with this ruling, he's got it. So don't let the media gaslight you into thinking that this is some act of cruelty. It's not. It's an act of leadership, something that we've sorely missed over the last 4 years. Now, what we do know about the Democrats, they love the SCOTUS. They love SCOTUS when they're on their side. They love the Constitution when they feel like they can use the Constitution, for to further their agenda. But they hate SCOTUS and they hate the Constitution when it's being upheld the way it's supposed to be upheld and it goes against them. They despise it. Shout out to my guy Jeff over at It's Not Your Fault, Al-Anon Recovery Channel. With the $11 super chat, he says Obama, both Clintons, and even VP Biden all said that illegals were a threat to our democracy until it became a way to skew and manipulate voting districts. You're absolutely right. They're also upset about the fact that Texas received a few new House seats because of the amount of illegal immigrants that have come over. Because the thing is, what you guys may or may not know is that the House is based off of the population of people. It's not based off of their population, the amount of citizens. It's just the people. So it doesn't matter if they're legal or illegal. It doesn't matter. It's just based off of that. So the more people you have in your state, the more House districts your state will receive and the more House seats you'll get in the House. And let's keep it moving, though. But speaking of major Trump wins, the President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, they held a 2-hour call on Monday. Pretty interesting situation. But looks like we may be moving closer and closer to peace between Russia and Ukraine. I'm 100% here for that. I'd like to see that. And I don't want us involved in any shape, way, form, or fashion.
We are told that the phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin has ended. That's according to a White House official. I'm going to get straight to our chief international security correspondent, Nick Payton-Walsh. Nick, what are you learning?
Yeah, this is according to Russian state news agency TASS, who are giving us the first readout based on comments made by Russian President Vladimir Putin, who emerged from this phone call that he took at a music school in the southern resort town of Sochi. To say that it lasted for 2 hours, he described it as frank and substantive. He said that Trump noted that Russia stands for a peaceful settlement of the crisis in Ukraine. He said Russia is in favor of stopping the fighting, but it's necessary to develop the most effective paths to peace. He also said that a ceasefire is possible upon reaching the corresponding agreements, and that indeed a memorandum between Russia and Ukraine may address that particular point. He said also that the meeting in Istanbul we saw last week on Friday, low level, Russia sent there, suggests that, quote, they're generally on the right track. And he said he was very appreciative of the conversation with Trump, and indeed that Russia's ready to work on a memorandum of a future peace agreement, and that Russia and Ukraine must find compromises that suit both sides.
Alrighty, so this call, this call comes after the first, excuse me, the first peace talks in 3 years, that they were supposed to begin last week, but then they got pushed back for one reason or another, and Putin first proposed direct talks, then refused to show in Turkey, and Trump, who was in the Middle East at the time, said that he'd make a pit stop in Turkey to join these talks only if Putin was there, and instead, Putin just sent the delegation. Anyway, we're going to fast forward to yesterday, and Trump announced that he had a very good call with Putin. He also spoke with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and French President Emmanuel Macron, and others, discussing the urgent need for Putin to agree to an unconditional ceasefire or face serious repercussions, including more sanctions. This is what we're hearing right now.
I want to thank everybody. We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place. So, but I want to thank Melania and for your leadership in this very important issue. It's an amazing issue. America is blessed to have such a dedicated and compassionate First Lady. I would tell you she is very dedicated. In fact, if you look at just what I heard, Putin just said they respect your wife a lot. I said, what about me? No, they like Melania better. That wasn't good. I don't know if that was good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
And somebody had a question. I want to make sure I answer that question there. Oh, Gladys Kravitz Jr. Asked why CNN using these British on-air talking heads, Five Eyes. The reason why they use these correspondents, because a lot of times nowadays, the news networks, they don't want to send people over to these places because it costs them money. So they would rather just use an affiliate over in another country, so they don't have to spend the money of sending people, and paying for people to go over there, and sit and so forth and so on. Because you're talking flights, you're talking food, you're talking hotels, so forth and so on. And a lot of these companies, man, they've gotten really, really cheap there. So they don't send people over like they used to back in the day when they would send an actual American correspondent. So they'll just use, an affiliate, over in these other countries, when this happens. So, but I wanted to answer that question because it's a good question there. But Putin did confirm, he confirmed that the meeting took place. He said it lasted a little over 2 hours, calling it very informative and frank. That's what was said. So, I guess there's some movement.
Добрый вечер. Меня коллеги просили сказать несколько слов о результатах нашего телефонного разговора с президентом Соединенных Штатов. Действительно, этот разговор состоялся, продолжался более 2 часов. Хочу отметить, что он был очень содержательным и весьма откровенным. И в целом, на мой взгляд, в этой связи весьма...
Yeah, so according to the call, Russia and Ukraine, they are on a path to start negotiations toward a ceasefire. Trump said that the conditions, for that will be negotiated between the two parties. And as it can only be, honestly, it should be between the two parties that are actually into it. We should let them handle that, because they know the details of the negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. Putin, in a statement, noted that a ceasefire with Ukraine is possible, but emphasized Russia and Ukraine must find compromises that suit both sides. Makes complete sense. Any concrete details on these compromises, they remain unclear at this point. So in summary, ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine are now officially on the table, and Trump personally called European leaders after speaking to Putin to brief them on the conversation. Trump's words suggest that he's taken the lead on moving this war towards a resolution. He even said that Ukraine stands to benefit from massive trade opportunities if peace is achieved. Russia, too, wants a large-scale trade with U.S., according to a post from the president. Excuse me. Let me share this with you guys so you can see it. Give me 1 second. Let me pull this back up. Here. So this is a good sign because let's be honest, Ukraine's they're in a tight spot right now. The war is in its third year with no sign of stopping. You're talking, and they have depleted forces, destroyed infrastructure, and a demographic collapse. Yeah, they're being pushed. They're being pushed to the table. They're being pushed to the table. But now, of course, you already know the media's they're having a problem with this, saying that Putin made no concessions to Trump. Like they know what's being discussed behind closed doors. They always make these assumptions, like they really know what's going on, and it was a closed door conversation. No one actually really knows what was being said.
Out to you about the way that President Trump and Vladimir Putin are framing this phone call.
Well, there are two interesting things. The first is that Putin made zero concessions to Trump. There was nothing in the Trump tweet or the post which suggested that Putin had budged at all. Putin continues to kind of yes, dear Trump, saying, yes, we're moving towards some kind of deal, but doing nothing substantive, providing no concessions. Compare that to Zelensky, who has essentially agreed to almost everything Trump has asked for. The second thing, John, that's fascinating to me about what Trump said in that post was he once again raised the prospect of this enormous gusher of economic deals that are going to take place between the United States and Russia once we get past this hurdle. He is so eager to engage on this front that it's puzzling. Part of the puzzle about Donald Trump has always been, what is his fascination with Russia? It's the only country that was not subjected to tariffs in that reciprocal tariff volley. His former national security advisor, his own national security advisor, General McMaster, says this was the one thing I could never figure out.
There was no tariffs put on Russia because there's no Russian products being sold in the United States. We're not doing business with Russia. So there was no point in putting tariffs on a country that we're not doing business with. So ridiculous.
In 1 year of watching him day after day, what is the hold that Putin has? I think this business about the economic activity may be a key. Trump thinks of Russia as this enormous productive economy with which the United States can do all these deals. Russia is, in fact, a declining state, economy the size of Netherlands, going down, down, down. To give you an example, Russia has grown 0.5% in the last 5 years. Poland has grown 4%. In other words, 8 times the pace of Russia. Trump should be trying to do deals with Poland and, frankly, turn Ukraine into the next Poland rather than this weird nostalgic fantasy about Russia as this great economic power. It's not. It's a dysfunctional, corrupt mafia state.
Speaking of fantasy, President Trump said again today that he believes that Vladimir Putin.
Okay, so how does this guy know this? How does he know this for a fact that Putin's making no concessions? How does he know this? He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He's just talking out the side of his neck. And again, he knows that he's talking to an informed viewer. So they'll say, people will probably question that. Yeah, why isn't Russia? Why wasn't Russia on the tariff list? Because they're sanctioned up, they're sanctioned up to here. We don't do business with them. They don't export anything to this country. So there was no point in putting tariffs on a country that has tons of sanctions and we don't do business with. But an uninformed viewer would look at that or hear that and say, yeah, why? Why? Look at that. Oh, man. Fareed, man, he just doesn't know. And none of us do. None of us know what was said. But let's break it down real quick, because he's arguing there's no economic potential in Russia. But the question is he right? Russia's economy, despite sanctions, is still a major player. It's the world's largest exporter of natural gas, a significant oil producer, and a key supplier of minerals like nickel and palladium. The economic potential, it's there, especially if peace allows for trade to resume. Ukraine as well. They have a vast agricultural potential, untapped energy resources, and a skilled workforce. The trade opportunities Trump mentioned aren't just pie in the sky. They're real. They're tangible benefits that could stabilize the region. Because, guys, having some sort of relationship with talking to other nuclear powers, in my opinion, it's a good thing. We shouldn't just ostracize people and refuse to have conversations with them. It's not smart. It just doesn't make sense. And let's not forget the human costs. We just need to end the war and all of the senseless killing. It needs to happen. We're talking over 500,000 people have died, millions displaced, and entire cities reduced to rubble. The demographic collapse in Ukraine is staggering, with a population drop of nearly 20%. 20% since the war began. Now think about that in our country. We have 330 million people. Think about what 20% of 330 million people. Think about that. Could you couldn't even fathom losing 20% of our population. You couldn't even fathom it. You wouldn't even want to. 330 million people, 20% of that. Come on, man. You're talking 66 million people gone. 66. That's a lot of people, man. 20% of their population gone. And no matter how much the media tells you, no, Putin must be defeated at all costs. And yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Putin. But let's be realistic here. How would we feel if Russia put weapons in, I don't know, let's say Canada or Mexico or Cuba or who else? What's another island that's nearby? How would we feel about it? We wouldn't let it fly. We wouldn't let it happen. They tried it in Cuba and it kicked off something that was about to go crazy. We would not allow another country to come set up shop on our borders. You can't even set up shop in the Western Hemisphere. Another nation can't set up shop in anywhere in the Western Hemisphere will be on your head. Let alone a neighboring nation. Are you kidding me? A neighboring nation? No, not at all. We wouldn't let it happen. So why do they insist on letting Ukraine join NATO? What was the root cause of this entire war? It was NATO expansion. Now think about this for a second. If Russia or China decided that, hey, we're about to go build a base in Canada, Mexico, Jamaica, Cuba, we're going to go build something right on y'all side of things where we can reach out and touch y'all pretty easily. We're not going to let that slide, man. We're not going to let it slide. So when you think about this, I understand. Now, I'm not a Putin apologist, not a fan, but I understand. I understand his premise. I understand the thought process. Nah, we don't want this right up on our borders. No. So from the Russian side, they're making it clear. They will not accept any kind of Ukraine NATO alignment. And if that's not taken off the table, they won't budge. And you know what? I think it's a small price to pay to end this senseless war. But anyway, where does this all leave? Where does all of this leave us at this point? And for now, Trump has taken a bold step, and whether you support him or not, whether you like it or not, the fact is this. He's the only leader who seems hell-bent on ending this war and the first one to make serious moves towards ending this war. Now, the question is this: will the Europeans cooperate? Will Ukraine agree? Will this be the beginning of real peace or just another pause before round 2 kicks off? Time will only tell. But I said it here, I said it before, I'll say it again. We need to end this. It needs to stop. War isn't good for anybody except for the people who supply the guns, ammo, and the guns, ammo, and all the weapons. They win. Everybody else loses. This needs to end. For Ukraine, for Russia, for the world, it needs to end, because we're not talking about just any conflict. We're talking about one where 2 nuclear powers could get involved at any second. And it's time to put aside differences, find some common ground, and work towards a future where war is no longer the answer. And Trump's call with Putin is a step. It may be imperfect, but it is a step towards that goal. And the media, they're going to try to spin it. The politicians, they're going to argue. But the reality is clear. Peace is possible. But it's only possible if dialogue happens. Peace is possible. And it starts with dialogue. There has to be conversations. So the fact that for the entirety of this war, and during that time that the Biden-Harris administration was in charge, you guys realize that they chose to never have a conversation with Putin. They chose to never have a conversation with the other side. They kept giving money, billions upon billions of dollars to Ukraine. They had multiple conversations with Zelensky, but they never decided to have a conversation with the other side to figure out how we can solve this and come to some form of resolution. How do you have 2 sides that are beefing with each other and you only choose to speak to one side? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't sound like a sound plan in conflict resolution to me. It just doesn't. But what do I know? What do I know? Oh, man. But I appreciate you guys pulling up this morning. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. How many of you guys, y'all want to see this thing come to an end without us spending another dollar on this conflict? But I appreciate you guys pulling up as always, man. Thank you very much. If you have not hit that like button for me, man, please make sure you do so. Definitely appreciate everybody that supported the channel financially through Super Chat, Super Stickers. Thank you very much. As well. Appreciate all the blues. T.A. Caskey, what's going on with your brothers? FRK9, Brent Montgomery, Coaster, Regina from West Virginia Wire. Appreciate you as well. Thank you very much for, pulling up and keeping things civil in the chat. I think we did hit a goal. I think we had, well over 100 people up in here. We got well over 100 likes, so that's awesome. Definitely appreciate that. And we'll be back at this thing tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back at this thing. Hope you guys enjoyed it, man. Hey, keep God first. Stay prayed up. And we'll catch up with you all next time. Peace.
Vibes so